we'll tackle three things today. The biggest chunk will be the last bullet point on how to set up a campaign live, where I'll show you live in Facebook Ads Manager how to set up a campaign. But I think it's important to give you a bit of introduction on why you should recruit through Facebook, and also what you need to prepare before hitting the Business Manager. Good. Maybe to clarify, we'll be using Facebook as a term or as a platform from now on, but make it very clear, Facebook is of course more than just the Facebook you know and probably also use. There's a logo on the left. Instagram is also owned by Facebook. You have Facebook Messenger, and the last logo is the Facebook Audience Network. It's the partners and the affiliates of Facebook, which you can also use to advertise. So all these four platforms are available through the Business Manager of Facebook, and I'll show you also how to choose one or the other. But as of now, if you see the word Facebook, just keep in mind we're talking about all the platforms linked to Facebook. Now, why should you recruit on Facebook? Very simple. When recruiting, most channels focus and most job boards focus on active job seekers, which is about 20% of the market. But there's a whole massive audience out there of passive job seekers. People who are not actively every day looking for their next job, but we're telling us, well, if something interesting comes along, why not? It could be closer to home. It could be a better work-life balance. It could be a more interesting job or a fantastic brand I didn't even know was recruiting. And that's obviously our target audience with what we do, right? And which we think you can reach through advertising on Facebook. And again, meaning the platform. Maybe a very short background on us. We're now in this recruitment business for about 4 years, and the only thing we do is recruitment advertising. We've put about 5,000 ads live in the past couple of years. So we have lots of data, lots of knowledge, which we're more than happy to show. And we've also developed a simple little tool to help you, but I'll talk a bit about that at the end as a shameless plug for self-promotion. But until then, we'll only talk about the tools which are available free for everybody. Good. Now, before, as I mentioned, opening the Business Manager of Facebook, it's good to have a few things ready and make sure you have the right setup for your campaign. We also have a data white paper, which we'll also send a link through in the chat later on. And that data white paper gives you a lot of more background on how to set up your recruitment marketing funnel, how to set up the basics, and what you should be paying attention to. But I'll first tackle the most important issues here. But maybe just to start off with a short poll, we're just going to put a poll now on your screen, I hope, or on the side of your screen, to ask you on how much experience you have already with Facebook recruitment advertising, just to have a bit of an idea on where you are and what I might be paying extra attention to. So let's have a look at those numbers, and I have to switch screens. So don't worry, I'm still here. Okay, so the biggest chunk of people have never done this before, but as you are following the advertising or the workshop, I'm assuming you have a keen interest in doing so. So let's make sure you get what you're looking for. Very obvious, I think, but it's important to make attractive advertising. The sole business of the advertising on Facebook is to actually entice people. It's to entice those passive-looking job seekers to actually stop scrolling, right? And click on your advertising to know more about the vacancy you're trying to propose to them. You should take into account that an average Facebook user scrolls through about 160 meters per day on their smartphone. Obviously, for the UK audience, that's something else in feet. And I'm going to make an educated guess. I think it's about 600 feet of page or about scrolling they do on their smartphone. I might be off there, but it's a lot. I might be off in feet. I'm completely right on the meters perspective. So basically what you're looking for, you want your campaign to have thumb stopping power. You want to stop them scrolling. You want them to click and have a look at the vacancy. And what's important is to Remember, don't use stock images, use authentic pictures. Try to be as authentic, as realistic as possible. You are in a medium or in a channel where people are used to seeing a lot of authentic pictures, so try and do the same. Try to keep it uniform, try to kind of, whenever you use different visuals, have the same kind of visual language which you're using. And finally, don't forget about Facebook best practices. They have a lot of requests. For instance, they used to have no more than 20% of your picture should be text. Technically, that's not mandatory anymore, but we have realized that it's better to kind of stick under the 20% to make it still visually appealing. Now, you can also use video. You can see a couple of examples here about video, which we have made for our customers. What's interesting, and again, I'm referring to the data white paper in our previous webinars, is that there's no silver bullet. For some campaigns, a video works better. For other campaigns, a picture will work better. It's very important to continuously test and continuously look on what is working best for your campaign and for your vacancy. But keep in mind that although as of now, we will focus on putting a picture campaign live, you can obviously also use video. Again, one of our tips is don't make that video longer than 10 or 15 seconds, or it will not be effective in pushing people through your to your vacancy. Now, just maybe before explaining to you what a Facebook pixel is, I'd like to put another poll, and that's our last poll, I promise, just to the audience, on understanding how many of you have actually installed the Facebook pixel on their website. And that's about, okay, right, it's a bit, most people are asking, what the hell is a Facebook pixel? Well, thank you for that nice segue into the rest of my slides, or the rest of this slide. What is a Facebook pixel? Facebook pixel is a small piece of code which you can add to your website or to your specific web page, like, for instance, a vacancy, and which kind of will link back to Facebook, so you can actually kind of make the connection between your advertising and what is happening on your vacancy page. It's very important to do that because it actually gives a massive boost to the possibilities you have on using Facebook advertising. One of the examples could be retargeting. You all know, especially a couple of brands and e-commerce brands are very strong at that, like Amazon. You look at something on Amazon and that thing will start trailing you through Facebook. Those shoes or that particular mobile phone, you will continue to see that advertising. That's what's called retargeting, which is very effective. And also not that expensive, actually, because you're only showing that to the people who have seen your vacancy. Second important point is you can use a pixel to track conversions. So I can actually tell Facebook that conversion could be, for instance, if somebody has applied to your vacancy, because of course you want them to come to your vacancy, but ideally you also want them to apply, right? And if they apply, it's fantastic to use a Facebook pixel to actually ping to Facebook and let Facebook know that this person has applied, because it will help Facebook to find similar people as the ones who have applied. And the last one is maybe even taking one notch further, is it can help you start building audiences, because you can actually start learning from the people who come onto your website and use the data that Facebook has for your next campaigns. So probably maybe a bit too far for this session, and we won't delve too deep into the Facebook pixel later on. But if you're serious about recruiting and using Facebook and Instagram for your recruitment efforts, please Google the Facebook pixel, or as I mentioned before, read our data white paper, where we give a bit of explanation on how you can use a Facebook pixel. Now, how do you set up a campaign? I have one more slide before we go live, but it's very important for you to understand how Facebook structures their campaign, because it's a bit confusing at first. And if you don't understand how that works and how you need to do the setup, it will make it more difficult once you go into the business manager of Facebook, because it's not the most user-friendly tool I've ever encountered, but more on that later. Now, there are three components that Facebook has structured their campaigns around. And the first is, at the main level, is your campaign objective. You actually have to tell Facebook what you want to achieve with your campaign. I can go from, I want them to download my app if you're trying to sell them more apps. I want them just to see my brand. If you're trying to build awareness, you just want to kind of, for instance, if you have offline shops and you want to build awareness so people are aware of those offline shops and a specific promotion you might be running, you could use an awareness campaigns, or you could use a conversion campaign where instead for recruiting, where you say, I want people to convert, I want actually to attract people to my website and do a specific activity. That's what's called a conversion. In the case of recruitment, that tends to be mostly an application to your vacancy. So please first tell and think about that, because this will have an impact on every level below. So you cannot change that once you have made a choice on what you want to achieve with your campaign. The second part under that is what Facebook calls the ad set. At the level of the ad set, you will start defining your audience. Who do you want your advertising to be shown to? And you can go very deep and detailed in that. We'll talk more about later. Which channels? Do you want to be seen on mobile? Do you want to be seen only on desktop? Do you only want to be seen on Instagram or also on Facebook? That's what you define in the ad sets. And then finally, you define the budget. Very important to have a good think about what budget you want to spend, because obviously, I'm hoping that was clear. Once you talk advertising, you talk about spending money. This is not about an organic campaign. This is actually about spending money. And also important because maybe some of you might have used Facebook Boost. Facebook Boost is an easy way of actually boosting one of your posts to an audience. And although it looks interesting and attractive to do that, you actually have a limited amount of audience you can reach, because you will only be able to reach people who are connected to your page and their connections. So you do not have the same flexibility as using the Facebook Ads Manager, as I will show you in a second. So that's the second level, which is the Facebook ads. And then obviously the final level is the actual ad, the actual advertising that will be seen by the people on Facebook, and that's where you define the copy, so the text that will be linked to the ad and the visuals that will be shown. Now you can have many ads in one ad set, meaning you could have 2 or 3 different ads, a video and a picture, going to the same ad set where you define a specific audience. You can have several ad sets in the same campaign. For instance, if you would want to test different audiences, but you can only have one campaign objective. So that's very important. One campaign objective, and then under there, you can have different sets and advertisings. I hope that's clear. But please keep in mind, if there's anything from the last slides you want to be taking a note of, that's this kind of 3-part structure of the Facebook setup, because that will be coming back when you set your ad live, but also when you do your reviews, when you do the assessments, when you do the reporting. These are the 3 stages you need to take into account. Okay. Now, we'll be going live now, which also probably means that you'll be seeing a black screen for a second, but no worries, or you'll be seeing me. I'm not sure which one it is. I'm also not sure which one you prefer, the black screen or me, but I'll leave that open there. I'll start sharing my screen again. Okay, I hope you can see Facebook Ads Manager now. So what I just did, I logged in. You can do that within any browser. You log into your Facebook ad account, which is going to be linked to your Facebook page. And then you obviously you have to give them your credit card number, otherwise nothing will happen. But once you've set up your credit card number, I would advise to take a corporate credit card. Otherwise, you might have a nasty surprise at the end of the month, because costs can go up quite quickly. So once you link your credit card, you're all set to go, and you can start using the business manager. I won't dwell too long on what any of the buttons mean. I think it's quite self-explanatory, but just to show here, as I mentioned before, you have campaigns, you have ad sets, and then you have ads. The holy trinity of Facebook. Pretty sure I'm being blasphemous now by saying that. I hope you'll forgive me. And I'm pretty sure Mark Zuckerberg will too. But okay, let's start creating a new campaign. So just make sure everybody can follow. You click on Create Campaign. As I mentioned, that's the top level where you can tell Facebook what you want to do. I've mentioned a couple of the examples here. Ideally, you will use conversion, and once more, that's the application of somebody applying to a vacancy. That's the best target to use, but you need to have the Facebook pixel installed. Okay, I won't dwell too long on that anymore, but ideally you want to set up your structure, you want to set up your website so you can have the Facebook pixel and you can use conversions to do that. But as we noticed from the poll, not all of you have the Facebook pixel. We'll just focus on a more normal traffic campaign. But again, although this is already a huge step forward versus a lot of other recruiters who are not using Facebook at the moment. So let's use traffic. And basically what you're telling to Facebook when you click traffic, and they explain also short here, you're actually telling Facebook, I want you to find people who are pretty, we can assume are going to be likely to click on the advertising and are interested in what I'm actually showing them, and have them land on my landing page. So the landing page is what we use as a term for your vacancy, because that's when they land once they click away from Facebook. Now, once you've done that, you can actually, although it's optional, name your campaign. We strongly advise to do so. And we also strongly advise to put some structure and thinking into that. Because it's going to be important once you start running a couple of campaigns to be able to compare one campaign to the other and to be able to actually learn from what you've done and from the money you've spent. So you can actually use that learning for your next campaign or for optimizing your current campaign. And Facebook kind of makes it a bit difficult, so that's why we're trying to advise you to actually also already at the naming level use the thinking. I'll make it clear what I mean with that. That's the wrong paste. Let me just do this here. So we're going to assume that we're going to be making a traffic campaign to find a digital marketeer for sympl. Although to make it very clear, we are fantastically happy with all the marketeers we have there. So we are not looking at the moment for a new digital marketeer because we have a great team. But just, for the sake of the argument and for the sake of the workshop, let's use that. That's campaign level. But make it very clear, you know what you want to do there and the objective you have chosen. Then at the ad set level, you'll start adding some more information about the kind of audience you're going to be building. And we'll start building an audience around marketing interests. And then finally, at the bottom level, you give your ad a name. And there we'll be using a picture of the team so that we know what we actually have put at ad level in the campaign. So traffic, sympl digital marketeer, interest marketing, big campaign, big team. So that will help you later on to do your assessments on that. There's no rules on that. And this is also not a request by Facebook. So if you just want to kind of say, call it campaign number 1 or the December campaign or the Christmas campaign, be our guest. This is just the way we are doing it, which helps us later on to do a better analysis. But everybody's free to choose the name of their campaign, obviously. Now, again, we won't dwell on special ad categories or A/B testing, because that will take us a bit too far. But by choosing objective of the campaign, as you can see here again, campaign, ad set ad, this holy trinity is continuously sticking around. We'll click on next. And then, as you can see, we went from the campaign objective to the ad set. And at the ad set is where you will decide audiences, placement, and budget. Now, where do we want to drive traffic to? We want to send people to our website. Obviously, we'll define the website later. Again, I won't dwell too long on the more specific elements like offering dynamic creative. Those are more for e-commerce brands. The budgeting is a very important one. Right? You want to give Facebook enough budget to start experimenting, to start looking at different audiences, to start doing some tests. So we advise that at level, it's probably good to at least spend 20 euros. You could do less, but then the impact will not be as high. So let's just to show, you could change it to 10 euros. You can define your start date, and important also, optional, you can define an end date, which is very important. You just want to make sure, in case you forget, that you don't spend all your money. because obviously Facebook is not going to send you a question if you don't send in, put an end date. This will run continuously, well, till your credit card maxes out. I think we haven't never done the test, but that's my assumption. You could also do some budget capping, which is later on. So you could do that here. You can actually say a lifetime budget. You could tell Facebook saying, look, I want to be 100% sure I'm not going to be spending more money than 350 euros on this campaign. We advise against it. Why? Because if you do that, you kind of completely let Facebook work out how much they would be spending across a certain period. It could very well be that on your first day, you already spend 150 euros of your budget, right? While this is not allowing you enough to do some testing to start learning from it. So it's better, in our opinion, to work with a daily budget and then define clear start and end dates on that. Okay, so we defined the budget. We told Facebook how much we want to spend, and now we will tell them the audience we'll be looking for. You could, once you have audiences you have used before, as I mentioned, which again, for instance, you've made through the Facebook pixel, you can actually use those here or find those here. But again, we're starting from a clean sheet, assuming you haven't done any of this before, and show you what you can do there. The most obvious one is to use geographic targeting, and then just to kind of show you how that works. You start by the center of the world, i.e. Antwerp. You click here on that particular place, and the base radius will be 25 miles. I'm not showing that in English metrics for our English visitors, but that's just a basic metric that Facebook is using. And then you can start playing around with that with a minimum of 10 miles. And then it will be 10 miles around Antwerp. Now, well, you could say, okay, I want to be I want to do 20 miles. But then actually, because Antwerp being quite north in Belgium, you start getting some of the audience in the Netherlands, which you might not want. It's very easy to then exclude that. Oops. So I try it here. Netherlands as a country. And then exclude the Netherlands. Sorry, I have to do that the other way around. Seems to be the Netherlands. There you go. For one reason or another, it's not showing me the Netherlands. Try it once more. Something in the settings here. Let's try and exclude Ghent. Obviously, the danger if you start doing live sessions, but I can show it with Ghent. So what you can do is you can say, look, I don't want people more to the east of Antwerp for several reasons, because you don't want them to kind of brace traffic coming into Antwerp. So then you can say, I want to exclude people who are in that area. Then you can start very, very, very targeted geographic locations based on using the tools, including excluding in Facebook in a Facebook map, right? We won't dwell too long. You can do similar things with age and gender, but as we mentioned before, we want to start looking for a marketing audience, and then we'll use the interests the interest possibilities of Facebook to do so. Facebook has a massive amount of data on their users, not only based on what they're doing on their platforms, but also on the websites they're visiting and their other interests. So you can actually use that data to tell Facebook here, the demographics. I think probably our internet connection is a bit slow. There you go. So let's do online marketing, more detailed. online marketing. And then you can see here marketing, fields of study, online marketing employers, online advertising interests, or marketing online interests. And immediately it also shows the amount of people they know. So online advertising had a massive amount of people in that interest. So it's going to show you based on geographic split and on your interests, how many people Facebook thinks they can reach in his audience. So there's about 1 million people they can reach. And then, interestingly, based on the budget you have already mentioned, they think on a daily basis they can reach between 4,000 and 12,000 people. They like to give quite a broad range. I'm sure there's a legal reason for doing that. And they assume that by spending that 10 or 20, what did we put? I think we put 20, yeah. By spending 20 euros per day, you'll be having 15 to 44 landing page views. Again, that's linking back to the campaign objective. Remember that, where we said we want people to be sent to our landing page, and that's where the objective here and the data shown is here. Between 15 to 44 people on a daily basis will come and visit your vacancy. If you would have chosen conversion as an objective, they would give the estimated daily results here on conversion. Again, showing the importance of thinking clearly about the objective you want to use, because you'll be having repercussions or results on that everywhere down the line as you move along. So, same thing here. You can actually start adding some interest. You can start excluding people with a certain interest. Let's just do marketing job titles. And what you'll notice here, and that's the difficulty with Facebook, is once you go into job titles, employers, as you can see on the right, only for about 439,000 people worldwide do they have a view on that. It's a very limited sample, which is why we don't advise using job titles and employer data as an interest, but stick to actually the interests of people, because Facebook has a lot more visibility on that data. Okay, so we defined the budget, we defined the audience. We'll just save this audience so you can use it again for later use. Test here. And there we go. On to the next part you have to look at. Placements. That's where do you want your ad to be visible in the Facebook ecosystem, right? Facebook will recommend automatic placements. There's a lot of reasons for doing that. We advise on this one to actually choose yourself, because it also will allow you to do better testing, to test whether Facebook works better as Instagram. But for that, you actually have to make some decisions here. And this was the audience network, Instagram Messenger that we mentioned before. We'll just decide to go only on Facebook for now. And then within Facebook, we're going to unclick anything, and we're only going to be visible on the Facebook news feed, right? We don't want to be shown in stories, in stream, search. Why I'm not showing stories? Because we're only going to be working with one visual now. And once you use one same visual across different placements, Facebook will start kind of doing the layout themselves, adding color, because as you know, we'll be using a square visual. The Instagram stories format is completely different. I'll show you here. So you can use the same kind of visual for the Facebook news feed and your Instagram feed. But on stories, I'm not sure if Facebook will show it here. Here you have a square format. And if you use a square picture in a rectangular format, that's never going to look good. So that's why we try to kind of limit it as much as possible here and make a clear assumption and a clear choice here. So budget done, audience done, placement done. Again, all of that at the ad set level. And then here, optimization, that's where we'll let Facebook work their magic. I advise not to touch anything more about that. But at ad set level, just make sure you think about your budget, placement, and your audience. And once you've done that, you can move to the next level, And if I would ask you the question, I'm sure you'll respond in one voice as a choir. That's the at level. And you would be right. So that's the at level where we now are. That's the bottom level of the Trinity. You'll define the pages. Some people, some accounts have different pages, but these are the pages you want to be linking to your account. And we'll start setting up the ad. So to create ad, we mentioned before, you can use different kind of formats. Again, here we'll keep it simple and use one single image to kick it off. You can choose a creative. We'll click here, and we've uploaded a couple of creatives already, although I kind of just missed the one I was looking for, but I'll choose this one here. That's the one I think. You can also, if you want them, you can upload them here and get them from your hard drive. I've clicked one of the visuals, square one. Facebook showing you how that will look like, and you click on done. There you go. So you've decided and chosen your visual. Then you have to kind of put some text in there. We've prepared this before, so you don't have to kind of see how bad I am at typing. And also feeling a bit like a cook, right? This is what we prepared earlier, which I'm getting out of the oven to make it clear. Here we're start defining the headline, which is a bit of text which we put under the visual. Sorry, kind of used the wrong headline here. That's the text we want to be using in our description. And the headline should be this. Again, that's also something where you can start experimenting with. So a headline is a text which is coming under there. The description is the text which you'll see linked to the vacancy. The destination website, that's very important. Again, we already told Facebook before we want to send people to a website, but you haven't yet told them where you want to send them, right? So obviously you have to tell them and give them the right address. I'll just paste a extremely complicated address in here, but I'll explain in a minute why that is the case. So as you can see here, the address is sympl.be vacatures digital marketeers sympl Antwerp. That's the name of the page you'll be sending them to. And that could be enough. You can actually go live and just send them to that particular page. Facebook won't mind. They won't block the advertising. You can do that. But you're not going to learn a lot by doing that, right? Because then once you start really increasing your data-driven recruitment tool set, you won't be able to understand where are people clicking from. And you'll just know they're coming from Facebook. So it's always good to give a lot of extra parameters with that. I know it looks a bit complicated. I'll just explain a bit more in detail here. But actually, in the advertising, you can already tell them what is the ad about, what particular vacancy number could it be. These are all internal numbers. And again, this is not mandatory. This is just to help you, right, do your analysis better once you start having your campaigns live. I'm just showing you, I'm not going to go too deep into that because it might confuse the hell out of you if not done already. Apologies for that. But just to show you, you can make it easy or quite complicated. Facebook will be more than happy either way. And I'll just show you here. This is actually the URL you want people to go to. We'll just keep it simple. These are first steps in the digital advertising front. But once you start going further, for instance, after you've read the data-driven white paper, UTM parameters is something which is going to really be part of your arsenal to start making better campaigns in the future. Your call to action, which is a default, is to learn more. That's this little button here on the advertising. That's called a call to action. You could choose a different one. You could, for instance, say apply now. And again, that will be shown on the advertising as such. Okay. Some tracking data. And again, you see the ubiquitous pixel, or at least ubiquitous in the presentation, being here, shown up here again. That's where you allow Facebook to start tracking the data through your pixel. But again, not mandatory, not even for a traffic campaign. You can do everything which we've done today, even without having the Facebook pixel installed. Okay, now we basically taught Facebook everything we want them to know, and we're ready to be published. So the only thing which is needed then is clicking publish. What will happen when it happens? Just notice I'm out of electricity almost. Could you just get a charger quickly, just to make sure? Oh, the charger is here already. Fantastic. Let's quickly plug that in. There you go. We're all set. So yes, what's going to happen once you click publish? Two things. This will be sent to Facebook. They might have, especially in the beginning, once you're starting off, they will probably have a team looking at the first set of advertising to make sure it's in line with the Facebook policies. A lot of that happens automatically, but they still have about, I think, 45,000 people looking at advertising to make sure it's within their guidelines, which could mean some delay once you start publishing your advertising. That's one thing you need to keep in mind. After you hit publish, it doesn't mean it goes live immediately. There might be a bit of delay. And secondly, also, once you start publishing, the clock starts ticking and the credit cards might be charged. Obviously, depending on the timing, you have decided on your advertising to go live. But once you publish, we'll do that now. Actually, you're telling Facebook, go ahead, according to the parameters I've given you, put it live, and that's when the clock starts ticking and the money is being spent. Okay, and then obviously in your Facebook manager, in your business manager, you'll be able to follow everything which you've done. You can edit it, adapt it, make some changes. But I would advise at least the first couple of days to let Facebook learn about the campaign. You'll see here then it'll become a learning stage. Facebook is learning about finding the right audience, finding the right people to reach you. Good. I think that kind of wraps up the setting an ad live part and the going live part of what we try to do. Just want to share one little tool that we developed for our customers. Just noticed I clicked open the Dutch version of that. Bear with me. Obviously, the basics. What we allow our customers to do is kind of give the most important parts of their vacancy and the kind of target audience they're looking for in a very easy tool, right? They can also kind of then upload, or they could also use our chatbot to ask them specific questions. So when people apply, not only will they get the standard questions, but they could get some specific questions about the vacancy. And here in the campaign tool, is quite similar to Facebook, although a bit user-friendly. It will allow you to just upload your visuals, the text you want with the advertising, and then once you click on going on, our algorithm will do everything for you, and we will be using our data or in our insights to start finding the right audience for you. We'll also share a little link in the chat where you can, because we're in beta version at the moment, where you can start registering for this, and we'll send you an access link if you might be interested in using this. But I'll go back to the presentation to wrap up. So this was, as I mentioned, the tool I've just shown you is basically helping you to recruit or doing recruitment advertising without any marketing knowledge, but using our artificial intelligence to reach the right candidates. And this we have used for about 5,000 campaigns. 5,000 campaigns. And we have a lot of data, a lot of information on what's happening and what's working and how we can help your specific campaign to improve. Last slide to wrap up. Thank you for your time. This is where you can reach me if you would have any more questions or suggestions for future webinars. But I'm wrapping up here. And then we'll go to the questions. So I'll just have a look at the questions which came in through the chat and see if there's some specific ones we want to have a look at. Here. Yes, okay. Nico, so your question is, which objective would you recommend for recruitment purposes? You mentioned conversation, but I'm assuming that's a typo, or you're autocorrect for conversion. Very clearly, conversion. Because that will kind of allow you to start, first of all, for yourself, to start tracking which campaigns are working best. So you can actually kind of do some proper assessment, because it might be that a video, for instance, the video campaign might be driving a lot of traffic to your vacancy, but nobody of those people might be applying. While the picture campaign, kind of as an A/B test, your picture campaign might be sending less traffic or maybe more expensive traffic to your vacancy, but the conversion percentage might be a lot higher. So it's very, very important. And in an ideal world, and that's how we do the setup also with the tool I've mentioned you, we will also always use, or mainly start with a conversion campaign. You can indeed use lead generation. And maybe just briefly explain. Lead generation is a totally different ad. What happens, you kind of make your ad, but once people click on the ad, they will stay within the Facebook page or within an Instagram page. And you probably have seen it before. Facebook will just ask you to leave your name, your email. You don't have to leave Facebook to do that. And then you will get, as an advertiser, you will get the details and emails from the people who actually left their data. There's an advantage of that, is that it will cost you less to kind of get the emails from people. The big disadvantage is that there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people just leaving their emails left, right, and center. And the only thing you have is an email. So you don't have a lot of data to judge whether this is going to be an interesting candidate. So although you kind of probably be paying less for those leads, our research, and it kind of not just research, but our experience have shown that the quality of those leads is substandard, and we would therefore, for a specific vacancy, prefer to use a conversion objective. Okay, then the next question from Dan is, what's the average budget for one campaign? Kind of depends on how successful you are. I know that's the easy answer. But putting it differently, if you think that with, again, depending on your vacancy, but if you think that you can be able to spend about 100 euros and get some great candidates, I think that's probably very optimistic. As we mentioned before, I think a daily budget of 20 euros is probably at the least, or sorry, the minimum you need to be willing to spend, because otherwise the Facebook algorithm will not have enough degrees of freedom to start testing. So 10 to 20 euros at least, we would advise. And then I think you start having the thing that probably you'll need 7 to 10 days for Facebook to start understanding and learning and finding the right candidates. So that's kind of the budget we would probably think about, which is about 500 to 1,000 euros for a proper campaign, which will allow you to do some good A/B testing, conversion testing, and get the right candidates. Then the question from Nico, would you advise using detailed targeting if you want to specify an industry or a specific job title? Yes, very clearly. So let's say you want to reach an audience within the logistic industry for a specific profile. You should use detailed targeting as one of the tests you want to do. What's kind of the most important, and probably this will kind of take us too far for this workshop, but start thinking about the kind of audiences you're looking for. What might they be interested in? Is it in, could be logistics, but it could also be transport. It could also be more other detailed targeting tools you have. It's a great way to start. There's other targeting possibilities also. Again, apologies for using that, but once you have the Facebook pixel, you could start looking at making audiences from the people who actually have visited your vacancy pages. So there's a lot of many possibilities, but to start off, if it's your first campaign, yes, please use a detailed targeting. What's your opinion about excluding people who already liked your Facebook page? What's the best way to do so? Yes, Kim, I think it's a good question. You can do so, but I think the upside is minimal. because actually what Facebook is looking at is CPM, cost per thousand. That's kind of the, and your CPM, so your cost to reach 1,000 people. By reach, we mean show your advertising to 1,000 people, is going to be to 4 to 5 euros. So it's actually quite cheap to reach a lot of people. And I think within that kind of constellation, I don't think there's a big upside on excluding the people who have liked your page, unless you have a specific reason. You kind of want to kind of show an advertising that you absolutely don't want people to have liked your page to see. You might do that, but I don't think it's worth your time and effort to do so. And then Yunus, which pointed out I already selected the Netherlands. Thank you, Yunus. I clicked the wrong button there, obviously, but thanks for helping me out. Okay, I think that concludes the questions we had for now, which I think brings us nice into the time. Yes, we stayed within the hour. So I hope you found it interesting. Please send an email or another message, or please stay in touch through our webpage. And all the best with setting your advertising live.